Welcome to the first of a series of learning sessions for Fort McMurray Public School Division. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Annalie Nutter and I'm the Superintendent of Schools. The purpose of this series is threefold. I'd like to share some information topics about the school division so that parents have a better understanding of how we operate. Number two, I'd like to offer parents and guardians an opportunity to ask questions about these topics. And number three, I'd like to allow conversation about the topics to occur amongst participants outside of the event. So how this series will work is I will be presenting information to start a conversation on a topic. And I will do this by choosing topics that have common misunderstandings in the past that I've seen through other engagements that we've done. During the session, there will be a Google Doc right below this video where you can ask specific questions about the topic, and where we will be answering those will be at the next session at the very beginning. So following the session, there will also come a thought exchange, which is also linked below the video, where you can continue the discussion. And the thought exchange will be monitored by myself, so I can either answer questions that you have right there on the thought exchange, or I can address them as well in session 2 at the very beginning. Either way, you'll get some answers. I'm going to stick to the time limit of 1 hour, but I want you to know that it's probably going to be less than an hour that I'm presenting information to you. It will probably be today about 30 to 40 minutes tops. I'm going to be reviewing the education plan for the division, and the results will be the topic next week. Session 1 and 2 will have some budget myths or misconceptions that I will address in preparation for session 3, which will be basic budget. And I'm not going to do one session on the budget, just so you know. The budget is very complex. So what I plan on doing is breaking that and chunking it up. So session 3 is basic budget. So every school division in the province is required to develop an education plan, and each school has their own plan as well. These are found on your school website, and or the division website has the division plan where you can take a closer look at the details. Today, I'm going to share an overview of our plan and how it's developed. And this will hopefully give you a better idea of what we're doing and how we're doing for student success and improvement. Last year, the government mandated an assurance framework so that stakeholders had confidence in the system and could see that what we were doing is what we said we would be doing, and that we were focused on student success. Part of the assurance is engaging stakeholders, which is one reason that we're here today. This slide shows you what it is we're providing assurance about. And Alberta Education informs us of what we need to provide assurance about. And these are the domains which should be included in our education plan. So you can see at the core is student growth and achievement. And so that is our largest focus and what we're all about. And then the surrounding 4 domains of teaching and leading, learning supports, governance, and local and societal context help us to get that success for students. And the plan is going to show you how we go about that. So if that is the what, this is the how we get that improvement in our system. The diagram on the right shows you what is a continuous pathway. So you know then that we are continuously trying to improve our processes in each of the domains that I just talked about. So we start by analyzing and looking at the data that we have for the domain that we're looking at. So for example, student achievement, we would look at the results that we have for various assessments that we do and interpret those results in order to develop some strategies and a plan of how we're going to make things better for the areas of weakness or the areas that we need further development in. Once we have the plan and strategies in place, we implement them or take action and adjust and tweak as we go along to make sure that we are giving the students what they need in order to be successful. And then in the end, we evaluate. Have we, what we have done, has it impacted student learning in a positive way? And did we do what we set out to do? Have we met our goals? And then we analyze again, we assess, we analyze again the assessment results, and this is a continuous pattern. Now, as I said, this is continuous improvement in the area of student growth and assessment was my example, but we also do this for teaching and leading. We also do this for learning supports, for governance, and that local and societal context. So continuous improvement is how we provide the assurance. The planning and reporting cycle is what you see in front of you now. There are dates that are set out by Alberta Education, and there are 2 peak times in the year where we do our reporting. In May, we are reporting on the education plan, and in November, we are reporting on our results. So last May, we would have shared all of our education plans to all of our stakeholders, and this November, you will hear about the results of those plans. And the results have to do with your feedback that you provide in the assurance survey and all of the local feedback that we get from different levels of stakeholders. So if you look at the wheel, it's similar to that continuous cycle that I just talked about. We develop a plan and we communicate the plan, that is our education plan, alongside of a budget, which we prepare. And we implement strategies and tweak them as we go. And there's a point where those are measured, whether it's through surveys or the actual learning assessments from students. We get those pieces of data and analyze them and determine what are the areas of strength and what are the areas of weakness and how are we going to work towards fixing those areas that are areas of weakness. We report on our results. So we show the public, here's the results we got based on the plan that we made. And we share that with parents, with all stakeholders, as a matter of fact. We identify the areas for improvement, and then we're back to the plan again. So we go and we renew the plan. So sometimes we don't write a whole new plan because we don't have to. We just need to tweak it. Sometimes we add new goals. So it just depends on how well your results work out for you. So when we do our planning, we plan from the bottom up. And this table, I guess you could call it a series of tables, shows you how we plan from the bottom up. If you look at column 1, the very first step at the school level is school leaders and staff review those results. And then they look at what the strengths are and what the needs are. And then they collaborate with staff and they come up with a plan. And then they share that plan and get more input from school council members and or students where appropriate. And then they sit down with school leaders, sit down with senior leaders and talk about their data and their plans, and they're tweaked further. They're making changes and adjustments where they need to. And then they will share their school plans with the school board, with the school council, with parents, with students where appropriate. The second column shows you the education department. That is the department that is downtown at division office. And their core work is education and the work that we do with students. So they analyze the division results because along with individual school results, we get data that is related to the division as a whole. So they will analyze those results, determine the strengths and the needs. They'll come up with some type of a plan that the department is going to use and focus on. Then senior leaders from that department give their input to the education team. And senior leaders meet to hear about the education department plan, which is embedded along with the school plans into our division plan. If you're looking at the plans later, you'll see links to them within it. And finally, the third column is at division office, we have other departments besides the education department who also review their role in student success. So each department determines what are their areas of strength and need. Each department figures out how to create a plan that aligns to the goals and the resources and the areas of need in schools. Then the superintendent meets with each department head to review their plan, and senior leaders meet to hear about the department plans. And these are all heard by a team that is going to draft the division plan. So we then craft that division plan and we get feedback from all levels. We get feedback from the board, from leaders, from networks, and tweak it again if we get feedback that we need to put into that document. And then in May, the education plan is approved by the board. Now, how do we figure out what our priorities are? Well, during the writing of the various plans, we determine what our focus is going to be. Each school is going to have a different focus based on their individual results, but the priorities are based on the data and aligned with the division and the province. So in front of you, you can see Alberta Education's business plan, Alberta Education's funding manual, guidelines for the education plan, and our own Fort McMurray Public School Division goals. All of those together, essentially we use all of those and make sure that we are aligned to the mission statement and the vision, and all of these documents align so that we are focused on the student growth and achievement, and know that we all have the same aim, our same goal. What are our priorities for the division? Well, here you see the alignment of the goals, the mission statement, the priorities, and the domains of assurance. And our 4 priority areas are, number 1, promoting success for all students. So we are making sure that students are successful, including areas of focus that Alberta Education would like us to focus on, that being supports for FNMI students, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students, and the English language learners. And that, of course, falls under the domain of that core student growth and achievement. So that is our aim or our goal, success for every student. Priority number 2 is maintaining safe and caring learning environments and supports. So in that priority, we include learning supports and quality infrastructure for all students. Priority 3 is about effective stakeholder engagement, which follows under the domain of governance. And priority 4, we have a culture of excellence. We want to make sure that you have quality teachers and quality leaders that are impacting the student growth and achievement. Everybody wants quality education for their students. So those are our 4 areas of priority. Now I'm going to go through some details on each priority with you so that you better understand how we're doing this. What are our strategies? How are we measuring it? And what is our focus? So priority 1, I've already mentioned to you. These are in detail on our website, as I said, and very loosely summarized here on these slides. So this is minimal information for a slide. This is not all of the information. Priority 1, our work with numeracy and literacy is paramount to laying the foundation for future success for all aspects of learning in all grade levels. So we're not just talking about elementary school numeracy and literacy or grade 1 numeracy and literacy where you learn to read. We're talking every grade level in every school. We are focusing in every subject. Just because I teach science doesn't mean I don't focus on the literacy. This is how we're aiming our success for every student. And we will continue with the extra supports for FNMI and ELL students. Professional Learning Fridays, impactful. This is where we can build the capacity in our staff to make sure that they know how to get improvement in areas of focus that are needed at their school level or their grade level. So numeracy and literacy coordinators from our division also lead staff during professional learning time. This is a time where they can go into the schools and provide whatever assistance and support is needed to make sure the teachers are understanding what it is they need to do and getting support where they need more support. It could be an assessment, it could be in the way they're teaching, or resources that are being used to get to that student improvement. We also have a new curriculum that is being implemented this year and for the next couple of years likely. So those people are supporting during professional learning time as well. The PLF time really allows us to do this without interrupting school days, where the teacher might have to go out of town to learn. So we try and use our experts that are in the city already, and the days that are assigned are a good avenue for us to be able to do this without interrupting. Shortage of TOCs is a factor. So yes, we could send teachers out. That would mean we would have a need for more TOCs during the day. But essentially, it gives them a chunk of time where they can get some real learning done without having to travel out of town, without increasing the costs to our budget and keeping the classroom dollars in the classrooms. We will continue to celebrate high school success through our traditional ceremony of achievement. We want to continue to empower our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students through land-based learning. We will continue to support them through numeracy and literacy, along with the English language learners. There are funds that come through those avenues, and so we need to make sure that the funding we're getting is being put towards those supports. And how are we going to measure this? Well, we have all of the assessments, as I've mentioned, and the assurance survey data that we can use to make sure that we're able to measure the growth and that there is growth. Priority 2 is that safe and caring learning environment and supports. So we will continue to provide mental health awareness to our stakeholders in various formats so that we can all increase our awareness of what mental health is, how they can take steps to improve mental health of themselves as staff and support staff, and how to access support when it's needed. And then they can pass along the learning to students to better help them understand what that means for them. Again, Professional Learning Fridays are an excellent tool for, they're an excellent avenue for us to be able to provide targeted learning in this area. I know that this year, mental health is a time where staff have a menu of options that they can choose to improve their mental health strategies that they can use in the classroom and learning that can be done in the classroom. We are also focusing on regulation, self-regulation. So the staff are learning about self-regulation, and then they will be teaching it to the students, which in turn will help the mental health of our students. So we have specific goals at each school. Again, I let you know that you can view those online in more detail. We're really focusing on those inclusive communities in the schools, the inclusive learning, and we have revised some of our needs assessments to better analyze and get the supports that are needed. What measures do we have? Again, local measures of surveys and the provincial measure on the assurance survey will let us know if we've been successful. Part 2 to the safe and caring is that quality infrastructure for all. So we're committed to providing high quality learning and working environments through effective planning and managing of the infrastructure. So those are things like the facilities, technology, transportation. So making sure that we're doing what we can there and that the fiscal resources are allocated and managed in the best interest of ensuring student success. So some examples of strategies: we are in the midst of the privacy and security of the systems that we're using for technology. We've done an audit. We're looking at cybersecurity. We're making sure that we are maintaining a good IT environment. We are providing support to access special programs like Robotics, Coding, Space Academy, etc. We have finalized the rollout of the GPS tracking for school buses, and we're looking at the testing availability of a scan-off technology for buses next. So we're always thinking to the future. At the same time, I do want to thank the Operations and Maintenance Department, who does an awful lot with very little, and want you to know that yes, there are some deficiencies in buildings that were pointed out in Thought Exchange that I brought to Operations and Maintenance, and we're finding ways to deal with those deficiencies that were brought forward and answer questions about them. However, we have limited some fiscal resources for this area so that we could get supports in the classroom as well. And I really want you to know that we take our resources and the money that we get for those resources, and we manage the money according to where the resources are needed. So we are able to do that once we get the money from the government and our budget is set. We can tweak where it's needed. So the local measures are there. A lot of it is data, which with regards to things like the number of bus riders and parents registered for parent portal, etc. We also have the assurance survey stakeholder responses that are available. Our third priority is parent and student engagement. And for parent and student engagement, we are educating stakeholders about the system, which is something I'm doing today to start, to increase your understanding and help you provide feedback for improvement. Every year we have these surveys, and there is a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to answering the surveys. So we are hopeful that through more engagement, and in these sessions in particular, we can find out what misunderstandings there are and address them so that you can answer those surveys better. And we will engage with stakeholders more frequently this year and close that loop on feedback. So as I said at the beginning, we're going to talk today. You're going to send me some questions. I'm going to provide answers in the next session so that the loop is closed and the understanding is improved. And then hopefully we can gain more satisfaction with system assurance. So you can see the strategies listed there. I might also be doing some in-person sessions, inviting you to come in to talk. We have the online, as I mentioned, we have stakeholder engagement through parent councils. So if you ever want to have your voice heard, you don't have to sign up to be on the executive of school council. You can just show up for the meetings whenever you want. Any parent with a child in the system can attend a school council meeting, and I encourage you to do that. A lot of questions go to those school councils, and they are gathering feedback from parents. And so if you're there, it's easier to gain that feedback. We're trying to put things front and center on the website. We have a committee that's forming called Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which is starting next week with our staff, and will be requesting parent attendance as well. We will be asking for committee members to join that DEI committee, so stay tuned for that. There are multiple opportunities for you, and you might think there's some opportunities that we aren't doing that we'd love to have feedback on. So please let us know when you think of those things. Again, through surveys and assurance survey feedback, we will find out what we need to know about where we need to improve and how satisfied stakeholders are. Priority 4 is about our culture of excellence. We have a foundation of strong professional learning opportunities and collaboration amongst the staff because of the work we've been doing for so many years when it comes to Professional Learning Fridays. We believe in lifelong learning for all staff, And we realize that data-driven proactive plans and how to accomplish this is very important to ensuring that we have the best impact on our staff and therefore on our students. We're starting to see, with the more specific questions that we ask our staff about the impact that it's having on their students, that it is impactful. They are telling us, yes, what I learned on this Friday was this, and they tell us, and this is how it's impacting my students. I brought it into the classroom. I tried this. I asked the students. I saw improvements in their grades. I saw improvements in their responses. So we know that we're starting to get feedback. After we actually survey the staff 3 times a year about the Professional Learning Fridays and how it's impacting their students. And we will continue to maintain these robust learning opportunities for staff and for Fort McMurray Public School Division so that we can develop strong leaders as a part of our succession planning. So not only are we talking about a culture of excellence for teachers and that quality education, but we're talking about quality leaders. We have comprehensive plans in place for schools. You are free to ask your principal at any time, hey, what's your plan for Professional Learning Fridays? I want to see it. And he or she can give you a summary of what happens on each of the days. They've got those planned in advance. We also have comprehensive plans for leadership as well, which happen outside of professional learning. So I hope you understand that we aren't just using the Fridays for the only time that professional learning is happening. We actually have multiple times throughout the week and the school year where teachers are learning. And one of those times is comprehensive plans for leadership. I feel like almost every day after school, there is some form of this happening. So we have new teachers who come to meet with the Director of Teaching and Learning, and they have something like 8 sessions throughout the school year where they come and meet after school for a couple hours. We have a vice principal group that meets. We have a principal group that meets. We have a combined vice principal and principal group that meets for professional learning. We have a group of interested teachers who want to be potentially vice principals or principals in the future. And they are coming down to division office for learning sessions throughout the school year as well. We have a group of teachers who want to become learning assistance teachers. Now, these are the teachers that deal with all the special needs in the school, from the educational assistants down to the student IPPs and meeting with parents and such. That is their role. And we have a number of teachers that we're developing to move into those roles once we have a need. So we're constantly thinking ahead of what are our needs going to be. How do we develop these people so that they understand their role better? And this is all done after school hours. So we really are trying to continue that culture of excellence through quality leading and quality education. The measures for this, again, are through the surveys that we do, and the assurance survey actually has specific questions about professional learning in it. Before I go on to this screen, actually, I'm going to go back. When it comes time to do that assurance survey in February, you're going to be contacted as a grade 4, 7, or 10 parent, unless they change that. That has been the pattern in the past. You will be sent a survey to respond. If at any time there are questions that you have and you don't know the answers on the survey, please reach out to your school principals to get answers and ask questions, because it's important that we get the correct feedback. And a lot of times we see, I don't know, and that tells us, okay, the parent doesn't know, we need to educate them more. But now we've educated and we're still getting I don't knows. What else do we need to do? So it's important, if you don't understand or don't know things about the school, that you're asking. One page of our education plan talks about future challenges, and you'll see more details in there. As I've mentioned before, there are 4 areas that we consider challenges. And the first area being mental health, which I've kind of mentioned in priority 2. Even though we've had multiple things occur in Fort McMurray over time, we feel like we are doing a pretty good job based on the experiences we've had, we know where to go to for help. We know what resources we have and where to go get them. We're very collaborative within Fort McMurray, either collaborating with the Catholic District and or partners out in the community. Some other solutions, Alberta Health Services, Canadian Mental Health. We are very collaborative in Fort McMurray because of the situations we've been in. The fire, the flood have provided some great experience, and COVID, I feel, and a number of people in the division feel, we were pretty good at transitioning and coming together and collaborating and knowing where the resources were and what to do because of our experience. But we know there's a lot of work to do with regards to support for people and making sure that they are taking care of their mental health on a regular basis for all of our stakeholders. But that is a challenge when in Fort McMurray we don't have the resources. It's hard to get people into Fort McMurray, and the whole province needs these resources. So some other communities are more appealing. So that will be an ongoing struggle. The learning gap, as you know, is we had a significant interruption in learning. We're going to online for a period of time and or not being in school at all. So we know the gaps are there, and those gaps will continue to be an issue. We'll address them the best we can, but we know that definitely that is one of the factors that will be a challenge. Poverty, we took a dive in the economy a few years back, which was also another traumatic experience for Fort McMurray, and now we have inflation. So things are not in our favor. We have a number of families in poverty. You can see some of the stats there about the food bank. These are just challenges that we know are going to be hard, because if your basic needs are a challenge to meet, it's going to impact the learning at school in some way. And so we are aware of that, and we wanted Alberta Education to know that. That was one of our challenges. And the final one is funding, always one of the most fun things to talk about. And funding you've heard a lot about, I'm sure, in the media. So these points might be familiar to you. What you might not know yet is that we, this year, are experiencing 7.9% growth in enrollment, which is the highest we've had in the last few years. Last year, we had about 6,500 students. This year, we have about 7,200. Our final numbers are still being assessed, so I'm just giving you approximations. But based on the funding model that the government uses, that leaves us with about 300 unfunded students in our system. This means that we have about $1.5 million less to work with, but we're still expected to provide a quality education to students. So that's what I mean when I say we have to move around the resources and use what we have in order to meet our needs. There'll be more to come on this in another session, along with some of those other topics as well. This is not something that's going to go away. The government is aware that actually you might have heard that the government announced that they gave us additional funding grants. They called it the Enrollment Growth Grant. And that is, yes, that did happen. But even though they gave us that funding, it did not meet the need and or match what we would have got if we were on the old funding model. It's still not meeting the needs. So that, like I said, is a big item to talk about. Budget is huge, and I will talk about that more in other sessions that we have. Next is my favorite section. What I've done is I've gone through the thought exchange, and when it was happening, I noted some things that were comments that were made about where improvements could be made in the budget. And so this section is going to be in every session we have, because I think it's just interesting and short little things that I need to, misconceptions that I need to get to the correct understanding for anybody that was a stakeholder and had these comments. So, number one, we heard pay the staff more, teachers deserve more, they've been through COVID, it's been tough, you should give them more money. And the same for the educational assistants. They had to be there all through COVID. I am totally 100% in agreement with you on that regard. Education did not stop. School did not stop. They still had to be online. They still had to be at work every day. And they, once school opened, had to deal with a lot of extra things that they normally wouldn't have. And I would love to be able to do that for them. However, staff salaries are agreed to under collective agreements. And these are negotiated through central and local bargaining items. So we have to pay them according to that. Can we give them bonuses? That is not part of their collective agreement. And so I too was a teacher once, and I know how hard it is. And I know how much they are underpaid. But this is a negotiations piece. So thank you for the thoughts and the sentiments. And they also thank you because they know that parents feel they are underpaid and should get paid more. But it's just not possible. Number 2 is, hey, one comment was something about, I know how you can save money. Turn off the lights at the football fields or the baseball fields at night, and then use that money for classrooms. It would save on energy and there'd be less electricity costs. Well, parks and soccer stadiums and baseball fields and the like are not our expense. We don't pay for that. That is a city expense. That comes out of the city budget. So great idea, but not our area. Schools are able to use them, yes. We will go out and use the fields anytime we want because we have an agreement with the city. It's called a third-party agreement, and they allow us to use the parks and the fields, and they maintain those parks and fields and keep them clean. That is their part. And then we use them, and we allow them to use our school gymnasiums to rent out during the week when they're available. So we have this partnership. And so shutting off the lights isn't going to save us any money, unfortunately. But it was a great idea, a great thought. The next thought was, hey, well, let's not start, school shouldn't start until September. They need a summer holiday. They need the full summer holiday. Why do we come back before? And then we have the long weekend. It just breaks up a holiday. So there's more to come on this in a separate session on how the calendar is developed. The only info I have for you today is that we have a required number of instructional hours for the school year that is mandated by Alberta Education. And so if we were to return after the September long weekend, and I see now that I spelt September long incorrectly, my goodness. If we were to return after the September long weekend, we would have to adjust other holidays throughout the school year and take away from other holidays in some way to make up for those lost days. But like I said, more to come on the calendar in a special session just on calendar. Probably not till closer to January when we talk about calendar and when the board is going to be making decisions. Number 4, the government pays for school buses. They get a grant. The schools get a grant for this. So why are we paying transportation fees? Well, the transportation funding grant has never, ever fully covered the cost of busing for any school division. So yes, they give us some funds, but it doesn't match the costs. Even with the fees that we charge, it doesn't cover the total cost. So I guess what I could say is I could say fees could be much higher, but they're not. And we manage with what we have in that way. And you might have seen this year that kindergarten busing at lunchtime was removed, and that was just a small solution to keep the costs down. Some of these misconceptions will come up in more detail in further sessions when we get to budget topics, like I mentioned. But I just wanted to throw them in, a few at a time to hit on some misconceptions so that they don't keep coming up in surveys when we put out surveys. And I'm hoping it's clear now. And I know there's a lot of people who aren't here online right now listening. So if you're ever talking to a friend and any of these topics come up, you can now share with them, hey, did you know they can't give the staff raises, or shutting off the lights at the arena, the football stands isn't going to happen, or the government doesn't pay for busing, so we can't say that it's fully, that we shouldn't have fees. So share that with your friends so that they're aware. And I will put in little misconceptions like this in every session that we do. I'd like to thank you for coming today to listen to this session. We will have at the bottom of the screen, if you haven't already noticed, in this video right below, there's a box and there's a link there for you to ask questions. It's a Google Doc where you can ask your questions and I will take them into consideration at the beginning of the next session. Alternatively, there you will also, not alternatively, in addition, you will also see a link to a thought exchange. I encourage you to take part in this thought exchange for the next 15 minutes at least, where you can continue the discussion of what was brought up here, ask more questions, put forward your thoughts, talk with one another through thought exchange. And I will look at the thought exchange on occasion. It will be open until the next week that we meet, which will be October 24th, will be the next day. So it'll be open until October 24th. And on October 24th, I will bring forward some of your thoughts and I'll share what you said. And I'll share some questions that you had. And so it will be the cyclical movement through the education of all of things operational in the division as we do each of these sessions. And I really look forward to hearing from you. So I just want to thank you once again for joining me today and hearing everything I had to say. If you can't get to the links, please email me and I can send you the links if you didn't see them in the video or you can't find them. Thank you so much. We'll see you on October 24th.